Welcome to the Metaverse event organized by BlockRocket and Disrupt Network. The details of this event will be explained shortly by our moderator Saga right after my quick introduction. So as this event is going to be big, everyone is going to be muted except for the speakers. If you have any question or suggestion during the talk, you can comment in the LinkedIn post or WhatsApp group that we have shared in the chat box, or scan the QR code here to join our WhatsApp group. That is from my side. I hope you enjoy the event. And now I will hand over to Saga to start the event.
Thank you, Alexandra. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first panel event of the year 2022 after the very awesome year of 2021. So I welcome you everyone once again. So I'm an investment manager of BlockRocket. What we are doing at BlockRocket, we are a leading early stage startup investor for the blockchain-based startups. We invest up into pre-seed and seed stage startups, and we write the check size up to €500,000. We also help our portfolio startups with the networking, matchmaking, and advisory. If you're building something amazing and next big thing in the blockchain space, feel free to reach out to us. You can see here some of the portfolio startups we have invested in previous years. As we said, we are active on LinkedIn and Twitter as well as, and this is our team. So feel free to reach out to us or either just log into www.blockrocket.io and apply through our website. That's all from my side for today. So I think everyone is talking about Metaverse, and let's hear from the industry expert what actually is the Metaverse. As you've seen that lots of people are predicting that 2022 is also going to be the year of Metaverse. So before we ask the opinion from the industry leaders, I would like to ask them to introduce themselves. So let's start with Arjun from Polygon.
Hi, sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Right, hi Sagar. Yeah, that's right. So again, Metaverse has many different definitions depending on whom you ask. But to put it very simply, it's the way I see it is that it's a three-dimensional representation of essentially social interaction, which we currently do in two dimensions. So for example, if you look at social networks today, if you look at something like Facebook, Instagram, etc., it's a 2D interaction, which is why something like a social network could never really replicate true human interaction. So I think a metaverse is a step up from that, where essentially you take the same interactions into a 3D world, and then essentially you build something which is a lot more intuitive. It's a mirror of your current world. All the things which you do in real life, you can do this, and it's more immersive. And essentially, and that's what gives it that stickiness. And of course, if you bring in interesting kinds of token models into this kind of a construct, then you can do concepts like, for example, play to earn. You can build other types of concepts. So I think you can still do you could do a pure metaverse even without tokenization, but I think tokenization basically gives it that stickiness and essentially creates that global community, which is something which you've seen erstwhile games like World of Warcraft, etc., where we first saw with MMORPGs this first concept come of people across the world coming together, building communities. And this is essentially, I would say, a natural step up from that, where essentially you've gone outside of just gaming and now you have essentially replicated this entire world. So that's how I understand it. I don't know. I think the folks at Sandbox would be the best people to answer this question. So I think I'll just hand it over to Marcus to cover that.
Sure, Arjun. Thanks a lot for the definition. But before we jump into that one, I'm sorry for that. But how about we start with some introduction? So maybe Arjun, few words quickly about yourself and what you're doing at Polygon, and tell us you're doing lately you're doing lots of noise and you hired just the executive of YouTube yesterday. So maybe a few words about you and Polygon, and then I would also like to ask other speakers about their introduction, and then we'll go deep into the more detailed discussion about Metaverse. Yeah.
Sure thing. So I'm Arjun. I head business development at Polygon. So as such, so again, I've been involved in most of the teams, right, since for the last 18 months. But my current focus right now is to take Web2 companies into the Web3 world. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on full time lately. Yes.
Thank you so much, Arjun. So now next we have Nicolas Weber, CEO and founder of MGH DAO. Nicolas, feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Sagar, and thanks so much for the invite. Great to be here. Quickly about myself. I've joined the crypto space around 2016, more from the investment side, but then really took a deep dive into the blockchain applications, consulted a couple of corporates, And then, really took a detour toward the open metaverse economy, where together with a couple of others, we founded MGH DAO about a year ago, where we, in a nutshell, focus on two core pillars, right? On the one hand, metaverse asset management and development, right? Together in our DAO. And on the other hand, developing intuitive tools that help people to navigate through the open metaverse, right? Really having that aggregation position, as it can be a bit difficult, of course, which metaverse do you start with, right? That's why I always try to use the open metaverse term a bit. Here we kind of focus on the data aspect, the MetaFi aspect, as well as generally tools for metaverse development. Apart from that, also co-founded the tokenization working group at the European Blockchain Association, as well as DAC, which is a metaverse and DAO incubator. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Nicolas. Next, we have Martin from Adhash. He's also CEO and co-founder of Adhash. So Martin, please say a few words about you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. As Gar mentioned, we are building Adhash, which is the future protocol of digital advertising. It's a big and complex industry that helps monetize the open internet as it is today, which is riddled with problems and inefficiencies. Hopefully we can make a lot of those disappear in the near future. Fortunately, not just us nowadays pushing towards more accountability and transparency and more focus on user privacy. There's also a lot of pushback to the existing incumbents from browsers, from regulators all around the world. So hopefully, by the time we live in an even more digitalized world, we'll have a much better user experience, because it is quite paramount. The more deeply we get involved with digital content, the more important it is to actually have control and actually have user choices, which I think very few people would argue is the case right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Next, we have Marcus from Sandbox. Marcus?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. My name is Marcus. I am the marketing director at the Sandbox, which is a decentralized gaming/experience platform built on the blockchain, which is fueling the creator economy, building a game where you can play, where you can attend concerts, where you can do whatever you like in a true metaverse fashion, and combining various angles on this side. I'm also co-founder of a play-to-earn project called RumbleKong League, which is around basketball and play-to-earn that went live 6 months ago. So very much touching the metaverse and sports, gaming, entertainment, and excited to be here.
Interesting. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. So let's jump into the metaverse, right? So my first question to Marcus, can you tell us what exactly is the metaverse, and what is the foundation of the metaverse, as Arjun said earlier, but I would like to hear from you as well.
Well, actually, Arjun gave a very good summary that I pretty much agree with, is that it's a combination of a lot of various things. There's also a thought around that the metaverse is not a location, but it's a space, it's a point in time when our life has been primarily or dominantly been happening online and in the digital world, which is happening right now, where also due to COVID, a lot of transactions, activities, events are happening digitally, and work from home has become more like a normality for a lot of people. And we see as well the metaverse as really this, not one space that you log in and you spend time in, but really a collection of multiple spaces that are all ideally connected with each other and decentralized through various means, various communities, various players in the space. So the term is being thrown around a lot over the last month, as we all know. But I think it's important to also remember that that it is not one space, but it is this collection of a lot of different projects and teams working together to build this space.
Thanks, Marcus. Nicolas or Martin, would you like to say a few words here, if you wish?
Yeah, I mean, I think Marcus was right on point in regards to kind of the collaborative approach, I think, right? If you look at the, let's say, traditional gaming industry, it's more like these very let's say enclosed ecosystems of value where it's hard to exit. But really in the open metaverse, right, the interoperability between the respective projects is really the key, and where I see the trend going in the future. Right now, of course, everyone is focused on building their own ecosystem, while in the future we already are seeing trends where really that push toward the interoperability between the different ecosystems is going to be the killer application. And generally, to me, right, when I joined the space, people were always talking about when is going to be that inception point when we speak about mainstream adoption for crypto. And I think the metaverse generally can be a true killer application here, because even a 5-year-old kid can engage with crypto through transacting with an NFT or whatever, right, which is a weapon in game, while not having to understand the dynamics, right? And I think that's kind of the point where we don't have to understand the technology anymore, but people can just intuitively use it. And that's the power of the metaverse also, and the impact it can have on crypto mainstream adoption in general.
Interesting.
And just maybe to add on top of what the others said, I believe that, if we're really talking about privacy and about user choices, it's super important to make sure that interoperability and that openness is built in right from the start. Because if we allow the walled gardens to take over from the very get-go, that could have some profoundly undesirable effects on the metaverse. I think we're already seeing that on the internet, but it could be even further accelerated if we're talking about further immersion into the digital world.
Interesting. So basically, Metaverse is like a copy of the real world, right? But everything will be on the virtual world. You can do everything, some sort of like what you are doing in the real world. So moving further, my question is to Arjun. So lately, of course, the Ethereum gas fee is the biggest problem, right? And even the newcomers cannot afford. It's a kind of like New York to live in the Manhattan. So many of the projects, those are building on like Ethereum, they lately move to Polygon because of the scalability advantage on top like a lower gas fees. So why do you think like Polygon will perform like some sort of like a leading role in building Metaverse?
Oh, sure, definitely. So I think a big part of so there are a couple of reasons to this. For of course, network performance has been a big factor. I mean, of course, we've been able to keep the throughput of the network high, so the transactions are fast. They're also inexpensive, and more importantly, our network hasn't suffered any major outages or anything like that. So even under extreme strain, like our network has seen like 9 to 10 billion transactions in a day, but rock solid. We've never faced any major issue like that. So I think that has given a lot of teams who are working with Polygon a lot of confidence that compared to some of the other infrastructures out there, which are also popular but have not been able to provide the same level of reliability, something which you would need in a metaverse. I mean, you can imagine if you're roaming around in a metaverse, suddenly everything stops. It would just completely destroy the user experience. I think a few other reasons also why metaverses have a lot of metaverses and gaming companies in general have been working with Polygon, of course, has also been the ease of use. Like you said, Sagar, it's the same as Ethereum. It's EVM compatible, so anything which you do on Ethereum works. So from a development standpoint, there are not a lot of hoops you need to jump through to get to get your solution deployed. So the time to market is really low. There's already tons of code out there which is audited, like whether if you need like say staking contracts, minting, whatever have you. Like so many projects out there, you can just reuse so much code. And of course, the other things have also been that the ecosystem we built, not just in terms of like the number of apps which are live. So the statistic which I got from Alchemy last week, when we asked them how many teams are building on Polygon, the number they gave us was 7,000. So there's 7,000 possible dApps now live on Polygon, and that's just from Alchemy. I haven't asked Infura yet, so the numbers are pretty crazy in terms of adoption. And what that means is that we have a large DeFi ecosystem, we have a large NFT ecosystem, large gaming ecosystem. Enterprise companies are now jumping into the fray. Adidas and Prada recently did their NFT drop. Prior to that, Dolce and Gabbana have done that. So many other brands are now people are deploying projects out of their own volition without telling us, so which is great. And because we have a large ecosystem, we can rally a lot of ecosystem support, and this extends to other integrations as well, which is integrations with centralized exchanges where users can easily take their crypto, for example, from an exchange to a network like Polygon, or vice versa, with extremely low gas fees. Recently, we had an integration, for example, with FTX as well. where now you can move funds from Polygon to FTX or back. We have integration with a huge number of wallets as well. I think it's over like I think 100 wallets. So we have a large span in terms of the number of users who can access our ecosystem as well. Our daily active count is also flipped Ethereum. So I think there have been so it's a combination of all of this which is coming together to make us successful. So one part is a network, but a big part of what makes us successful is our ecosystem and community. And in my opinion, that is always the most important thing, which makes any project successful. So because we've been able to build this ecosystem of apps, of partners, tooling, and at the same time, we're completely aligned to Ethereum's philosophy, I think has been a big part of what we're doing. And of course, it's still day zero for us. There's so many more exciting announcements to come. So stay tuned for the next few weeks, and I think there should be a lot of fun things happening.
Interesting. Thanks a lot, Arjun. So now moving to the Sandbox. I think everyone knows Sandbox, those who are active in the crypto space. But again, I would like to ask about like Sandbox. Like, what sort of role here Sandbox plays in the metaverse? Because lately, you did lots of partnership, a few names like Snoop Dogs and Walking Dead. On top, like SoftBank lead the Series B round of 93 million euro, and your valuation soared to like a couple of $1 billion. So like, people know about Sandbox because of the land, right? But what on top of you guys are doing in Metaverse? Like, can you walk us down the road? Like, what will we see in Metaverse coming days or month to come?
It's a very broad question that I think like I don't want to steal too much time of everyone here, but essentially, like for the Sandbox, for those that are not familiar, it's that we are like in like this virtual world where you can interact, create, play, and earn on the blockchain. And the whole real estate, like land component that you mentioned, is one element of it, which I think right now has a lot of attention because it is our key revenue driver, and the key transaction volume is happening on our map, which is essentially a virtual map that consists of 166,000 pieces of land that is that only ever will exist. And on each land, users will be able to create experiences, artists will be able to host concerts, you will play games, you can visit museums, you can build a house, you can really do whatever you want on it. And for us, it's about creating this world, and more importantly, supporting creators that want to build within this space and having an inclusive ecosystem that everyone can feel welcome in. So what we're really building is the foundation of a open metaverse that brands can feel comfortable in, that users can log in, that creators can build experiences, and that artists can like design assets that can be used by other users. For example, you can create a digitalized guitar that is being used by Snoop Dogg in a concert in his land, theoretically, because everything, like every asset, every NFT that you see is created by someone else. There's a true creator economy behind. And part of our mission as well is to really empower creators and give them the opportunity to, if they want to like move their primary source of income into the Sandbox. And we see already that we have Metaverse teams and studios that are like working with brands to develop their experiences, to build concert halls, to build games. The same we see with the creators that design voxel assets and NFTs that are being used in game experiences or elsewhere within the Sandbox or even beyond. And in parallel, also we're very proud to be very open and be very agnostic when it comes to other like brands entering. Like you mentioned Snoop Dogg, and we also we have a partnership with Adhash, with Deadmau5, with the Walking Dead you mentioned as well. We have a very strong relationship with Polygon, and we are on the move over to layer 2 as well, which is going to happen this year as well and over the coming weeks. So there's a lot happening, but at the end of the day, we really want to build a platform that is where anyone can find something that he relates with and find his community, find his space to hang out, find a location to engage with, and move ideally on the metaverse and earn money and create something and build together with the community.
Interesting. Thank you, Marcus. So my next question to Nicolas, which is where to combine the metaverse? Is it like a combination of virtual reality or augmented reality? And there must be many players in the market, right? I mean, we can talk about like open metaverse and closed metaverse later on, but I mean, where to combine the metaverse? If you can say a few words about this one.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to combining or let's say converging the metaverse, I mean, that's a bit like also a difficult question, I think, because I mean, there's so many different angles when it comes to really the different metaverse economies that are currently emerging. I mean, it feels like every other day I see another metaverse coming out of nowhere, so to say, right now, which are kind of copying also the early players. When it comes to combining the metaverse, I think it really comes down to kind of a segment in the metaverse that is currently, in my opinion, a bit forgotten: the users, right? Because the users are really going to be the core drivers of adoption. Right now, we have all these hypes, as Marcus also mentioned, with the lands and everything, but we really need to have the users, which are kind of, let's say, that they are central point in the decentralized ecosystem, which kind of combines it, I think, because they are going to be the ones that are actually going to engage and jump maybe from the Sandbox to Decentraland to Blocktopia to a different metaverse, right? In regards to making their everyday salaries, working in a metaverse, meeting their friends, playing. And I think that's kind of where we really see the convergence of everything coming together. And which is why I think, interoperability as well as aggregation are really the key in regards to approaching this, and also giving everyone the space to kind of build and create their respective niches and ecosystems within the space to really have that diversified approach where everyone has a chance, so to say, to empower themselves within this creators economy.
Interesting. So I think there's like we talk about like economy and what are the issues right now in the metaverse, but I would like to ask specific question to Martin, as he's building something on blockchain with regard to like which is advertisement related. So I mean, right now if we open the TV, I mean if we switch on the TV, there is like advertisement, right? In my YouTube, there is advertisement. But how will the advertisement will work in metaverse world?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Hopefully, I cannot answer it fully. Hopefully, lots of new and creative ideas will emerge as those platforms become more and more powerful, and more developers start getting involved in them. But I think a more important question is not how it will work, but what purpose will it serve? Because I think advertising has been a super powerful engine for opening up access to information on the internet. I think we are living in a time where we have unprecedented equality when it comes to how much information we can get to very, very quickly. Regardless of where you're from and what your financial status is, you have access to a huge amount of knowledge, even if you compare it to just 2 decades ago. And a lot of that has been driven by the ability to monetize content through digital advertising. Unfortunately, somewhere along the lines, even though a lot of interesting innovations were happening in the space, we got lost and we started turning advertising into this surveillance economy and just forgetting what purpose it is serving and how it can do its best job. I think if you ask the average user nowadays, they associate advertising with tracking, with intrusive ads, with slow load times, and just a lot of negative experiences. And that is mainly due to the fact that the focus has been so strongly put on tracking and surveillance, mostly over the past decade, by some of the big monopolies in the space. And what you can see even today, just on the internet, not even in the metaverse, is that you don't need to do all of that tracking, and you don't need to do all of that surveillance to actually deliver efficient advertising for advertisers that would allow publishers to monetize the products they create and the information they provide successfully. You can have advertising targeted based on much more benign data points and indicators, mostly contextual, as well as data from the real world. And hopefully, as we go into even deeper digital consumption and living our lives even more digitally, we can actually prioritize those data points that are not user specific and that are not intrusive to our user privacy. and we can build on those rather than tracking users. And this is super, super important because if you're scared today of what the tech giants know about you by tracking your online behavior, just by monitoring closely the cookies in your browsers, essentially, just imagine how much more information they will have if they can track your every move and every interaction that you have. So hopefully, that openness that we talked about at the beginning, and that interoperability and that decentralization of companies and platforms that are building and creating the metaverse would allow for creation of advertising for those companies that want to monetize through advertising and to offer their products for free. That takes the user into account and is super privacy focused. I also, as a separate point, think that a lot of the art in advertising has been lost in the digital advertising era, where ads are just based on some super basic metrics and super basic optimizations, where brands are forgetting why customers should care about the products that they're offering and the emotional experiences that their advertising should offer. I think we're down to some very trivial and simplistic ad formats. And I think the metaverse will create a lot of opportunities for more innovation and for actually building ads that are more engaging and better fit to the content that they are, that they're used to monetize. I think we're already seeing a lot of work in that direction and some promise. So hopefully, that will continue happening, and we will get advertising that doesn't just serve a purpose to monetize the content, but actually is a net positive for the user as well, and enhances the experience rather than subtracting from it.
Thanks, Martin. I think my Google knows about me more than myself, I think, and that's the biggest issue nowadays, right? And that's why, my next question is to specific Marcus, because he also have to leave early, right? Because he got some better things to do, and yeah. So basically, Marcus, so we talk about economy, interoperability, governance, identity on Metaverse, right? So can you talk a little bit about how the interoperability and governance will play the role in Metaverse? On top of, if you can also touch point a little bit about differentiation between open Metaverse and closed Metaverse.
So I'm getting the broad, the very big questions here.
Because you have to leave early,
Yes. So actually, yeah. So sorry. I have, but I'm gonna stay a little bit on. In terms of interoperability, it's first of all, it's a very difficult word for me, giving the English native. But one part, I briefly touched it initially, it's this notion of the metaverse and the dApps and the different services and projects being interlinked with each other, which essentially is this point of interoperability of multiple use cases for this potentially the same token. This could be a avatar, could be a subscription model, could be just the an access token to certain communities or services or something completely different. End of the day, it's up to the creator to decide what utility his token is providing to his own community, but then interoperability comes into place when it comes what can this activate and what value can this token give beyond the initial use cases. This could be a very basic example could be that you own a NFT that is a Bored Ape, and first of all, it gives you access to this community, to this status, but it might also be that you can in our case, it's going to be an avatar in the Sandbox, that if you go to a completely different product and a different team, but the same token gives you utility beyond just being what it is as initial use case. And that's something that we're working on with various collection, various teams, but we also bring this further that if you own a token, or if you're part of a community, you get something on Polygon, you get something in the Sandbox, you get something somewhere completely different, or maybe you get a hoodie sent to you, or that is from a different brand, or you get invited to real life events just because you're part of this community, or you have a circle of friends that goes into that in the same area. So this is really for me the interoperable part, which is very exciting, and I think this is at the end of the day what this metaverse is about. That because we're all going to work on projects, we're all going to be involved in it. Every one of us in this call as well has their projects, but there are a lot of teams and a lot of people and a lot of projects being developed every day. And I think the important part is to find use cases, how those interact with each other, and how they can, like, how you say in English, like all tides lift the boat. Like, is to work together and create something that that gives value beyond just having users in your own walled garden and monetize and retain them to a max, but also give like be open and understand that users, they also want to do something else. I want to go somewhere, like go into other ecosystems or talk to other people. And I think this is the key challenge. It's a change of mind as well, because like myself as well, coming from a traditional gaming background, it's very much contradictory to be open and because you want to retain your customers and you want to keep them in at all costs, but like giving use cases that go beyond your own maybe native IP, or like working together with other brands, in my opinion, can just enhance like your overall brand recognition, because you can attach yourself like to either their brand, or the other brand can attach themselves to you, which I think is a very powerful tool that not many brands are utilizing yet, but it's coming more and more, as we see also like through the discussions that we have at the Sandbox. When it comes to open and closed metaverse, just to wrap this question, I think the other speakers, they probably have an opinion on this as well. But on my personal opinion, like as open and transparent as it can be, like the better. That's how I see it. Like transparency is key, and it's something. On one side, I find I think it's very it's refreshing and encouraging that you could theoretically create your like a new persona, like a pseudonymous identity on the blockchain, like through wallet, through like a Twitter profile that is not linked to your real life as well, but it also has certain risks attached to it, as we see like every week on Twitter, like of some like influencer or like a big name that is doing shady stuff, pumping his own bags. So this is something which we have to like be careful about, be vigilant, and like still use common sense, not just because someone with a large following is saying something that we jump and follow blindly, but that there is a due diligence involved with it. But as a notion itself, I like the anonymous side of it, but there is a caveat to it, which I think is very important to keep in mind.
Truly humble advice. Thanks a lot, Marcus, for joining us today. And yeah, we'll definitely reach out to you again for our upcoming events in future.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to stay on a couple of minutes because I want to hear the opinions of the other speakers as well, but I'm just going to switch out then, and thank you for having me.
Sure, thanks a lot. So Arjun, Nicolas, and Martin, please feel free to take a lead and say your opinion.
Yeah, I think generally, I just want to go quickly back to also the advertisement part. I think what's important to understand is here that, for instance, when it comes to the power of advertisements in the metaverse, that we can see a land, for instance, it's kind of like a website, a domain, right? And if this land is populated, if there's a lot of traction, right, then there's going to be a lot of obviously traction also for the respective advertisers on that respective land, just to kind of comment on this. And in regards to, kind of the interoperability and the open/closed metaverse dynamics, I think right now we have to be honest, right, more at the stage where each metaverse is a bit more closed, right? But that's okay because everyone is in the building stage. And I think it will be a gradual process toward kind of that interoperability where we'll actually have someone just easily, let's say, moving around from one metaverse to the other without any friction, right? And here, of course, also scalability is a key. Therefore, it's great that Polygon is taking such a proactive stance in regard to the metaverse economy, right? Because it will be a bit difficult if everything is going on Ethereum. And I do think that the EVM-based ecosystem is still the strongest, right? And will be in the future as well. So I think really here the operability is super simple, right? When it comes to the migrations from the different chains within that ecosystem. So therefore, this is the true, let's say, driver of adoption, and where we also see the biggest traction when it comes to the respective metaverses. And also a core aspect that I see, which is quite relevant for the interoperability, is that we can stay anonymous, right? But we do have to have like some sort of reputational based systems in place that also kind of affect, for instance, governance and decentralized communities within the metaverse, and generally your interactions. For instance, I mean, there's already people applying for jobs in the metaverse, right? But we also have to have some verification, which is super easy, right? If everything is on chain. But therefore, I think we will also see a huge drive toward this kind of metaverse CV or something like this, where we have these reputational based systems with an NFT POAPs are a good start into this direction, for instance, but there's definitely going to be a lot of more traction when it comes to this, which will be a key driver also for interoperability, where kind of everything that you do within one metaverse also affects, so to say, what you do in another metaverse, right? And I think that's where we will have kind of these metaverse identities / CVs also emerging and playing a crucial role in regards to the adoption. We can stay anonymous, right? But we still have kind of that track record of our achievements and reputations within our metaverse engagements.
Interesting. I mean, I'm sure Arjun can say a few words about that one, but you said like stay anonymous and still revealing the thing is like also like tell me without telling me, kind of like zero knowledge proof, right, Arjun? And I'm sure you guys are really deep into this one at Polygon as well. So tell us a few words about like what the Marcus discussed recently, but on top, like you can also add about like what sort of role the identity will play in the metaverse.
Oh, definitely. I think it has a big play, because what you've kind of realized is that like full anonymity is great for many use cases, but there are of course times where you do need to be able to verify identity, right? You, like for example, for a simple thing like in Decentraland, you have a casino, right, which is decentral games. Now it's a game at the end of the day, but it's also gambling, and would you want maybe a minor there? And there are questions to be asked, and and how you would approach some of these problems. So I think digital identity has a big part to play. And also I feel even in metaverses now, like we've discussed like metaverse economies and sort of the kind of impact metaverse can have on on us as human beings and on culture. But I also feel that like there are also certain other things which also need to be discussed, and this is something which I've been pondering on for the past few weeks. Like with social media, when social media first came about, with Facebook became popular and Instagram became popular, it took us like a full decade before we began to realize some of the negative consequences, of social media. Like they never occurred to us. It's only after like almost 10 plus years we realize that, okay, there's a spike in teenage suicides, and that there is, spike in people like, who have like, body dysmorphia. And because of, and the fact of the matter is that, people tend to over a period of time become obsessed with their online lives. And then there's sort of this dissociation which happens between the physical realm and this. And I wonder that armed with this knowledge, now that we know how social media affects us, especially negatively, and how it affects the youth, maybe we should have safeguards built into the metaverse right from the start, before we encounter some of these same problems again, and possibly they might even be much worse. Right. So sometimes I wonder that if you're, let's say, a minor, Decentraland should, like, for example, let's say if you're connected to a metaverse, and if you've, after a certain amount of time, it should maybe lock you out of the metaverse until, like, say, the next day, so that you end up spending 18 hours on it. I don't know if, on a technical level, there's several ways you could implement something like this. Or, for example, if you're doing some high value transaction, if you're a minor, then it sends some sort of a EPNS like message to your parent or to your guardian that, this transaction's happening. Like we read all this all the time, right? Like some child picked up your phone and did some transactions, and then the parents had no idea. So that's why I feel that like there's so many things about social media which are amazing, but there's so many negative consequences as well. And we know those now. So maybe, now that we're building metaverses for massive scalability for the next, let's say, million users, maybe we need to have, at least start having these discussions right from now, so that, we can build something which is a lot more inclusive, fun, immersive, but also safe, for everybody, from a sort of a mental standpoint. So that's something which I feel, we need to maybe start looking into as well as a community. So.
Interesting. Martin, would you like to add something here?
Maybe a little, sort of a concern of mine on the open versus closed topic, because I believe we are all on the same page that openness and transparency is crucial, and we would love to see it happen. But I think as technologists, we might be overly optimistic about the role of technology in this, decision making. I think it will be less about openness, will be less about technology, and a lot more about economic interest. I don't think, the internet started much more open than it is today. It's not because of lack of technology that allows openness to propagate. It's more, more about companies that are trying to pull everything into a walled garden. And, when maybe literally the most well recognized of those companies renames itself to Meta and makes such a big bet on the metaverse, we certainly need to take notice and be careful about how that will play out. Because if we don't, I hate to advocate for regulation, but nowadays those corporations are even more powerful than a lot of governments in terms of their effect on, user behavior and user choices. If we don't start off with strict rules and strict regulations about what is allowed and what isn't allowed, we are risking that even though we might build all the open internet connected tech that's necessary, that's not how it's going to play out, and we'll end up in closed walled gardens where user choices are far fewer than we have today. And I think that's a trend that has been diminishing the openness of the open internet, and that we need to be super aware about when considering the metaverse.
Interesting. Nicolas, moving further, as Arjun mentioned, right, you can also get locked out from the metaverse. So how to build, how to construct a metaverse on top, there must be some kind of security risk on top, like data handling. And I was listening to one of the podcasts from JB Burke from Outlier Venture, and he was mentioning that those people who own the metaverse, those who owns the data basically, right, in the metaverse will be the superpower of the upcoming days, or Web3 technology in general, right? So just consider yourself just kill the internet from half of the world. There will be already WW3, some kind of things, right? There's some terminology exists in the world. So what kind of what is the vital role played by the data here, and how to construct the metaverse?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you mentioned that data aspect, because I mean, everything at the end of the day is data in a sense, right? But when we speak about data, it's something that by the masses generally it's overlooked, right? People just still don't really care about it, and especially as you mentioned correctly, right? In digitally only, so to say, economy like the metaverse, it's obviously something that's the underlying infrastructure and the oil, right? And therefore, I think it is crucial that we kind of have decentralized data structures within this ecosystem, right? Here it will be, let's say, also a core challenge to hold these metaverse players, publishers accountable in regards to how they handle the data, whether they make it accessible, whether they to the people, right? Whether they make people govern their own data, or whether they, let's say, use the same dynamics such as the big tech corporates have done. And I think that will be also kind of something that we should all look at, whether these respective metaverse players actually follow through on their promises or kind of go into the similar direction. And I think here, of course, decentralized data marketplaces, for instance, such as Ocean Protocol, provide a great base layer infrastructure in regards to allowing everyone to monetize their data in a decentralized fashion, and also distribute data and make it more accessible in a decentralized way, right? And also, of course, other
I think we lost the connection with Nicolas. So till he come back, I would like to ask Arjun a specific question, DeFi on Metaverse or DeFi in Metaverse. So what sort of role DeFi or decentralized finance will play in Metaverse?
So this is very interesting, right? And I always kind of felt that there doesn't seem to be any proper metaverse for the DeFi community, right? Which is a very, very, which is by itself, very unique kind of community, where so for example, if you look at Lobster DAO, I'm surprised there's no Lobsterverse where I could potentially have, people who are interested in DeFi, come together in the metaverse space. So there are two things to think about here. So one is, of course, DeFi. One is about, bringing DeFi communities into the metaverse. And the second thing, what we've also talked about, is how you could potentially have, let's say, DeFi concepts embedded in the metaverse, right? And of course, so some of them are pretty easy. So I'm sure you can already imagine a bank where you could just walk in and do DeFi, right? Which is basically take out a loan, deposit money, do other interesting kind of things. I fully think that there should be some DeFi district where, Aave and Curve and all of these guys can have their real estate, and where, you can just sort of move around and, sort of meet those kind of people who are into DeFi, and then at the same time, be able to do these interesting things. And of course, underlying for any metaverse to work successfully, especially in the Web3 world, you need to have sort of your token economic set. And of course, there's a DeFi play. So even when you look at it from a project success standpoint, of course, you need to consider that. So I think all around, like, it would be great if I could see maybe like some sort of metaverse either for DeFi people or like a DeFi district in some metaverse where you could like maybe have this community come together, and who knows, like some more interesting concepts may come out from that. So yeah.
Interesting. Nicolas, we lost you in between, but yeah, feel free to finish your talk. You can resume from where we left. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Yeah, it really shows Germany needs to do some improvements in regards to digitization, right?
We need Starlink.
So basically, exactly.
Yeah, we need Elon Musk, right? Starlink.
So in regards to what I was saying, I'm not sure exactly at what point I was left, but I mean, the core thesis I wanted to really push is that, the metaverse publishers, which let's say that need not beat around the bush, right? I mean, most of these metaverses are starting from a centralized approach. So of course they also control the data right now. But yes, they should implement and allow the possibility for users to fully control their own data, and then also potentially in the future leveraging more sophisticated approaches to really allow users then to directly, of course, having kind of that brave browser logic in place, also monetize their data in a way and be rewarded for it, but not just directly assuming that the publishers of these metaverses should control the data, right? And here I think generally, I just recently also read an article about DAOs governing, so to say, data, kind of also coming from that Ocean Protocol corner, which I think is also going to be a core aspect when, for instance, I mean, the Decentraland is already a DAO. The Sandbox is also on the path to becoming a DAO. So I think kind of, at least it's going to be exciting as well as interesting to see whether then when we morph into that stage where these projects become like a fully fledged DAO in a sense, whether they then also allow the community to actually govern what happens with the data. So that's really something where I would say that also from a subjective point of view, I will also differentiate, okay, who's really in it for the true value, or who is actually in it just for the quick buck, so to say, when it comes to actually how these projects approach the data topic.
Okay, perfect. So let's release the poll for our audience. So let's see what they think. So I would like to ask my team to launch the poll. So let's see what the maximum audience thinks about Metaverse and what they see and what are their opinions. But moving further, I would like to ask a question to Arjun specifically, which is network effect, right? And it will play a huge role in Metaverse or any kind of buzzword like we talk about, like NFT or DeFi. On top, there is a dev wars already going on, and it is going to be much bigger than what it's already. So what is your opinion, like who will win the race? And I'm sure we need everyone, all sort of player L1s, L2s here, but what kind of network effects and dev wars will play in Metaverse? Because we see big techs are coming into Metaverse, like Microsoft and Facebook, right? So they have lots of massive funding capacity, right? And so does the Polygon. I think you guys are also heavily, aggressively putting your capital into into new upcoming building the ecosystem on top. I again repeat, you hired the executive from YouTube yesterday, and so he's going to lead the Polygon studio. So definitely there must be some bigger plan behind it and to lead in the Metaverse. So how about let's start with the dev wars, and then you can talk about network effect.
Sure, definitely. So I think from a core driver perspective, like I said, in Web3, the most important thing is community and ecosystem. So I think blockchains, for example, who are able to build great communities and great ecosystems would automatically succeed. And when I say ecosystems, it's not just the apps, but also all the required tooling, all the other things which you need to build a successful project and a successful sort of community yourself. So I think that's going to be extremely important. With respect to network effects, of course, one of the biggest advantages of Polygon is that we're all Ethereum maxis. We love the Ethereum ecosystem. Polygon also is easy to build on because it uses the same EVM, or rather the operating system, as Ethereum. So of course, that like I said, any sort of ecosystem which allows you to get to time to market easily, where you can hire technical talent more easily, where you can do all of these things more easily, essentially has the greatest chance to succeed from a project standpoint. And like I said, if you can foster like a large community of people who follow your project, who sort of use your blockchain, then of course that would be great. In terms of our company strategy, of course, with some of the biggest companies in the world now also looking into tokenization, into blockchain technology, I think this is a big win for the ecosystem as a whole. I mean, for a long period of time, us who've been in the blockchain space have been advocating its advantages, and its transformative effect it could have on economies. And it's great to see some of the largest organizations now jumping into this. And of course, with them, the scale is entirely different. When we talk about Facebook with like 1 billion people on it, and then when we talk about even Snapchat, 400 million users on a daily basis. So there's some pretty amazing, like crazy metrics there, which is great. I mean, this means that you can get a large number of people onboarded onto blockchain technology. But then, of course, it means that you need as a blockchain, you need to have that level, that kind of scalability roadmap, that you can cater to this kind of user base. I mean, today I don't know I don't think there's any blockchain out there which can support 50 million daily active users doing transactions. So I think blockchain technology, this will push blockchain technology also to now solve for even greater scale and sort of solve more problems. So I think it's great. It's a big win for the ecosystem as a whole. I think a lot of things will improve now. As you can see, like a lot more talent is now coming into the Web3 space from Web2 space. So I think it's great all around. And of course, we always say that the future will be multi-chain. So there would be like one clear winner, but there would be multiple parties, right? Very similar to how cloud works, where you have AWS, which is the largest player, but then there's also GCP, Azure Cloud, and a bunch of host of other smaller players who maybe are more specialized towards certain tasks. So that's kind of how we see the ecosystem.
Yeah, from your talk, lately I was listening to Raul Paul, and he was also mentioning like AWS have like 350 people working on Metaverse. So that's crazy. Like the level of work, what's happening right now is different. But we can also see that the Generation Z would like to stay all the time in digital world. But on top of that, they also don't want to end up using the like centralized world, right? Of course, like Metaverse, Meta, right? Facebook previously, or Microsoft will come up with like a really good solution, or maybe they will also kind of get success in terms of like utilizing the users. But I think the long-term future is Web3 definitely. And that's why I'm also going to host my next panel event on Web 3.0 versus Web 2.0 to discuss about like who wants the data. And it's the Web 2 is like too old now. We started Web 3 discussion since 2021, and now I think it's time to make it happen. And I think it will play also vital role in terms of like user growth, because now we have infrastructure around the world. People have like a basic access to the internet. I mean, I'm not talking about like a whole world, but like, for example, like talking with India, like every person some sort of holds like a 5G internet, and they have like 2 GB of data every day to utilize, right? And on top of that, not chilling too much about my panel event. Of course, we'll do it later, but would like to ask Martin specific question. Like as you can see, like all big tech, small tech companies, newbies, everyone is jumping into the Metaverse. So now definitely like all the big business, like small scale, medium scale, or big scale businesses would definitely love to do their advertisement in Metaverse, right? So like how this kind of enterprises or companies will do actively advertisement in Metaverse?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and I think what we typically see in the advertising market is that you need to have supply first, and then demand follows pretty exponentially afterwards. So as those communities and tools and platforms are being built out, that's creating supply that then some innovators can create unique ad experiences on, and the demand might seem sort of short term, the demand comes slower than you might expect, but then longer term, when you look at it longer term, it actually exceeds your expectations. So I think the initial impression would be that advertising budgets are moving slower than expected into the metaverse, and then as soon as some of those initial results are in and the metrics prove that it's a worthwhile investment, things tend to explode much quicker than people expect them to. And the actual question, about the pragmatic aspect of how those brands will come into the metaverse depends a lot on what we talked about, where we're discussing open versus closed metaverses. Because if the existing biggest advertising companies, Meta is a very good example, that prevail, and we have a much more closed metaverse than we would like, then it would all be according to their rules. The expectation would be that they will sort of mix the advertising product with what already exists out there with their other properties, and it would just be an extension of what exists out there today. And that could potentially lead to less desirable user experiences when not so much attention is paid to the actual user experience, but more is paid towards profits. Whereas if it's a more open setup where we have multiple players building on top of each other and competing for providing the best possible experience, then we would expect a much more innovative and interesting playing field for brands to really try to be creative about how they want to reach their audiences and what messages they can share with them.
Interesting. So polls are over, and I think 47% of our audience today said that they would like to, or they would love to interact and live in Metaverse. Though second winner was they don't have any clue, they can't say where they want to live, Metaverse or real world. But I think I can see there's lots of sentiments coming towards the Metaverse. But moving further, my question to Nicolas is you guys are solving so many problems at a time, whether it's NFT, Metaverse, or DAO things. So my specific question to you is, so you guys were buying land lately, lots of lands on Sandbox, right? On top, you are making the tool where any NFT holder can land their NFT, in the Metaverse. So how this economy will work? I mean, for example, if you tell to the new person, it's kind of unimaginable for them, right? They don't understand. If you can tell in simplified level, how it will look like in future, what you are trying to achieve is.
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, generally, we started our path, when it comes to our metaverse journey at MGH, that we wanted to just collaboratively govern and acquire lands and then develop them. But we quickly realized that, we can't just raise funds as a DAO and then just acquire overpriced lands, which is why we came up with the idea of developing the algorithm that allows the fair pricing evaluation, of the respective lands. We chose lands and in the future also other in-game assets, because I think generally when it comes to NFTs, you have to differentiate between the more cultural NFTs, which are the art part, which are a bit harder to appraise, similar to real art in the traditional world, and the more financialized NFTs, which are the metaverse assets, which is also why the metafied term is in my opinion going to really accelerate in this let's say next wave of adoption for the metaverse economy, where basically similar to, let's say, appraisal tools in the real world, where you can, evaluate your asset, your price, kind of like a Bloomberg/Booking.com style, where you can find the fair price, the undervalued price also, or the unvalued land, the unvalued asset, so to say, that you're looking for. That's kind of the angle that we want to come from, So on the one hand, offering the more sophisticated infrastructure when it comes to leveraging the algorithm for DeFi players, NFT marketplaces, and so on, which can just kind of plug in the algorithm to their respective infrastructure and then leverage the valuation. While on the other hand, of course, let's say the everyday users in the metaverse can then leverage the tools to intuitively navigate through the metaverse economy, to kind of scope where is an undervalued asset on the market. We also have, for instance, the Sandbox land detector on Twitter, where we post daily about, for instance, undervalued land in the Sandbox. No, I don't want to give financial advice, of course, or no FOMO here, but it's definitely an interesting Twitter account to look at if you're looking to acquire some land there. And that's kind of the approach that we want to have, to really make it more intuitive and accessible for people to navigate through this space. Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks, Nicolas. My last question to Arjun. So on the view of 30,000 feet, what do you see or where do you see actual metaverse and people are interacting in metaverse? How long? What's the roadmap or time frame? 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years down the road?
I think it's happening fairly quickly. For mass audiences to access metaverses, a few things need to happen. So I feel what has to happen in the next 6 months is, number one, that most metaverses need to become mobile compliant. or have allow people with mobile phones to access it. So mobile phones is by far the sort of the most wide distribution sort of system you have in the world, especially when you look at countries like for example India or Southeast Asia, etc., where you could like a lot of users there, and even across the world. So I think having metaverses which are more mobile compliant, which maybe use things like cross-platform engines like Unity maybe or Unreal, where you could like run across platforms. I think that's like super important. And I don't think anybody would have a problem maybe even downloading an app or something like that for that, since they're already used to that kind of distribution model. So people could just download an app on their phone, which could like be the graphics package, and then you could just like how you design an MMORPG, essentially, you have to design it exactly the same manner. So I feel metaverses need to follow that kind of design principle, so that you can have mass audiences. Currently, most of them I see are optimized for a desktop experience, which is not the most let's say widely adopted sort of way to access the internet. So I think that's extremely important. So I do feel that these problems on the technology side, it's still early days. I mean, we are still at the point where we're figuring out these business models, brand partnerships, token models, how the economy will run. I feel figuring this out right now is like more important. I think the graphics package is like a solved problem because already many popular games do it. So that's not too much of a leap. I just feel that if you can just figure out what metaverse economies need to look like, and then some of the other problems around digital identity, which is again something you can solve with app downloads, right? So you can check someone, like for example on Android, you can see a Google profile and know and do like a preliminary age check or something like that. So there's several things you can if you can solve some of these problems, then I think like we will see huge amount of adoption in the let's say next maybe 6 to 12 months. So I think 2022 is definitely going to be that year. So yeah.
Interesting. Thanks a lot, Arjun, for all the insight, and Nicolas and Martin as well. And thanks to Marcus from Sandbox. Unfortunately, he had to leave earlier. But I really appreciate your time today. You came to our panel event and shared the insight of the Metaverse. And I think Web 2 was like all about writing and editing, right? And Web 3 is all about like writing, editing on top, owning. So let's discuss about Web 2.0 versus Web 3.0 in our next panel event. Till then, thanks a lot for our audience and all the viewers. So wherever you are, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. So stay healthy and see you next time. And in between, please follow us on Twitter or LinkedIn. And feel free to reach out to our speakers. They are already on our LinkedIn bio. So you can reach out to them if you have some questions, and we are more than happy to help you. Perfect. Thanks a lot. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.